What up? Who I got?
It's Auburn Alumni.
Hey, what's up, man?
Nada, man. Just enjoying. I don't know why I haven't been watching games like this forever because it's almost therapeutic. I feel like my wife doesn't quite understand the trials and tribulations of Auburn football as much as I do when I'm in a group chat of fellow Bunkerites. So.
Dude, I thought you had a great day today. You were critical when you needed to be critical, and you were not critical when you didn't need to be critical.
Well, I mean, you brought up a good point, right, just a minute ago when you were giving your post-game thoughts, and that, I mean, this isn't 2012 by any stretch. And, you know, in regards to like me, like I'm 42, I was in school during the final years of Tot.
Yeah.
And then when Tubbs first came in, I was there for 3 and 8. That was a train wreck. And that one, you know, rarely, I mean, I was literally living in Sewell Hall, interacting with these players every single day. So I know what an actual, like, guys not giving a crap and stuff like looks like, because I literally heard it from their own mouths when I was there. But in regards to this team, to me, this has a very 2011 feel to it. A team that we're not completely devoid of talent, but there are just key areas where we lost so much, especially on the lines of scrimmage. So there's stuff that is self-inflicted in a lot of areas, but at the same time, too, there's also the aspect of, I mean, we've brought it up before, you lose a Derek Brown, you lose Marlon, you lose 4 out of 5 on the O-line. You have absolutely no spring practice with a new offense coordinator. And then you have COVID that basically, from what everybody is saying, we never had the same 5 guys on the O-line, so we can't build any consistency. Okay, so there's that. But on top of that, you've got a group that obviously is not – we don't have any elite left tackle, an elite right tackle. We don't have an elite defensive tackle at the moment. So that's self-inflicted because, again, that's coming from your recruiting and your development. Yeah. Because obviously Alabama and Georgia and everyone else feels that too. You know, we all talked about it in regards to there's flashes of, oh, we look pretty good, and then there's in the same game, in the same drive, we'll have a what the heck are we doing, or what was that, or a drop. So it's a mix of it all. I do think that the defense obviously is a pretty big issue, and has been. I mean, that's clear as day when we just don't have any impact on the defensive front right now. We just don't. I would say we're a very, very average SEC defensive line. We may be below average depending on who's banged up and what time in the game it is, because like you said, Truesdale and Newkirk, I mean, those guys are playing the majority of the snaps, and they're not exactly – I mean, they're not first-team all-SEC guys. They're good, solid SEC linemen, but they're not guys that should be taking 75% of the snaps.
Agreed.
In a game. You lose your heart and soul of your defense 2 games into the season. So it's a mix of self-inflicted, absolutely self-inflicted. I am not happy at all, just like everybody else, with the state of the program, the state of the roster, and that's all on Gus. And it should be on Gus. But you compound that with the other circumstances we're dealing with too, and that's what makes it even harder. You know, everybody's talking about, well, we should have lost this game. Well, that's not necessarily true. We got freaking robbed on that kick return. That was an awful call. And even if they called both calls correctly, we still win the game.
Oh, I forgot about Tank's return. Yeah, that was a great return.
That was a terrible call. A terrible call. And even if they called the one right for Ole Miss, we still have 42 points instead of 35 because Tank takes that to the house.
Yeah.
And you know, again, and let's say it now, this is now 5 games of the season. Tank Bigsby is a ridiculous college football player. That guy is absurd. I mean, he's even as bad as some areas of our game are. I mean, this guy's the best pure running back we've had since Carnell and Ronnie. I mean, he's better than Carry-On. He's better. Carry-On's amazing, but from a pure talent standpoint, it's without a doubt this guy is just an animal. But that being said, the thing that I've got right now, Jay, and this is just something I wanted to talk about real quick, was, you know, you just talked about it in kind of the state of, you know, where we are with power brokers and stuff like that. Here's my thought on this. I will never, ever, ever, ever root for Auburn to lose a game. And it actually kind of infuriates me on the board when people are like, if you want what's best for Auburn, you'll root for them to lose. Fuck no. Excuse my French, but I'm never going to pull for Auburn football players, basketball players, whoever, to lose when they're going out there and putting their guts on the line. I don't care what we think about the coaching staff. But that being said, it should not take us going 3-7 or 2-8 to make a change if it's clear that a change needs to be made. And to me, now it's clear, without any bias, without any, if you hate Gus or not, you are 8 years into a program. We see where we're at on the depth as far as the defensive front, the offensive line. But the bigger impact is this. The recruiting is a lifeblood of a program, period. If it ever dies or withers on the vine, you have to make a change or you are killing your program. As of today, and to me, and I think jhead and I talked about this on the board a little bit on a post, and I look at it this way. We're not going any, even if we play perfect the rest of the way, there's no effing way we beat Alabama. That's not even a remote possibility. So best case scenario, you're 7-3. You're probably more like, to me, you're 6-4, but you could be worse because there's no game that's an easy win. So to me, right now, at 6-4 or 7-3, is recruiting going to be effective enough moving forward to where next season are we going to be in a better position than we are today? Because Seth Williams will be gone.
Yep.
He's going to go pro. These guys are going pro. Are there more Seth Williams? Are there more Tank Bigsby's in the recruiting class now? Or are there guys that we can recruit for the following year and actually get them that Alabama and Georgia and LSU and Florida and Texas A&M and Clemson and these other teams want? Because to me, I feel like we're the easiest negatively recruited team in the country, and it's not because of what's said on a message board. It's because of the product on the field and consistently in nationally televised games. And Jay, you've heard it. You've heard Kirk Herbstreit and Jordan Rodgers and these other guys, and I don't always agree with what they say, but it's a bad look when every single game broadcasters are saying literally, I don't understand what Auburn's doing here, or why are they doing this? Like, completely questioning scheme, development. That's condemning your program to me if I'm the head coach. So you get that combined with the record. I mean, it's obviously also not a good look when you get throttled by Georgia every year just about. You're going to get throttled by Alabama most likely in Tuscaloosa. And we've been throttled plenty of times by LSU. So there's not enough goodwill and there's not enough collateral built up by Gus outside of that Iron Bowl a couple of times to have anything outside of that to talk about. By contrast, all of our opponents can go into every living room right now and say Gus is constantly on the hot seat, which he is. There's no one if he survives this year, there's no way to me that our recruiting class is top 25 next year, because there's no kid in America that can't see through the constant national television, message board, just the general temperature that we're too volatile. To me, we're past that point, Jay. We're past the point to where
they're going to take a step back.
Is going to take a step back. Yes,
they're going to take a step back. I don't know if it's top 25 though.
Right.
I think they'll be like
top
20.
The point of, are you happy with that?
Mm-mm.
Are you okay with that?
I understand why. I understand why you guys would not be happy with that. Auburn should be top 10 every single year, but yeah, well, let's see if they can pick this thing up. I mean, if they start getting on a hot streak now, they might be able to slide in there and get some more 4 stars and get in the top 10. I don't know.
Well, that's my question. That's the question that really everybody should be asking is, okay, let's say that we suddenly make a run. Okay, and by run, I mean, let's say we win every game that I think we have a possibility of winning outside the Iron Bowl. But let's say we get thrashed by Alabama in the Iron Bowl. But say you go 7-3 best case. Are you really in a better position next year? That's my question. Is this staff able to recruit like they should be able to recruit in the current environment in that situation because who are we recruiting against? If we're not recruiting against Georgia and Alabama and LSU and Florida, who are we recruiting against? We're recruiting against South Carolina and Arkansas. Okay, then we're saying we're okay. We'll just keep rolling and be mid-tier for a few years. But I don't think that's where we're at.
They're recruiting against Georgia and Florida, and they've got to win more. Absolutely. Absolutely. You're absolutely right about that, Auburn Alumni. You've been right about pretty much everything today.
What's that?
I said you've been right about pretty much everything you've posted today, whether you've spoken it or you've typed it. You've been on target all day long. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying. To me, I'm happy we won. I'm hoping we win all the rest of the games. I am just looking long term, and if I'm a power broker, if I'm Alan Green, I'm looking at it from the perspective of, are we wanting to compete with Georgia and Alabama? If that's the case, you have 8 years of a record, not just for us, but for our opponents to look at. Because if they go into a living room of a top offensive tackle, and Kirby Smart goes, well, Auburn's produced effectively 1 or 2 or 3 total linemen in the NFL. Here's our list. We've beaten them, 9 of 11 straight. Things like there's just, to me, there seems to be too much to overcome long term, regardless of if we go 7-3, 6-4 this year. So that's my question. So in regards to the whole coaching change, we've got to look at it from that perspective. But as far as today, I'm hella happy for the kids. I still, Gus Malzahn, you better be handing the ball off the tank first play of every game moving forward, period. Because we've got a very special football player in him. But it's a combination of, yes, there's areas that need to improve. There's areas that are not out of our control, but there's still a whole lot moving forward. I think that I don't know if it can be remedied with Gus. So that's really what I wanted to say, Jay. Look, but otherwise, I'm happy as hell we won.
You've been on point all day long, Auburn Alumni. This has been an A+ performance from you from start to finish. So you've done a hell of a job.
Well, I appreciate it, sir.
All right, brother. Appreciate you calling in and taking some time all day long. You've been great, really.
Hey, man, brain drain for Gonzaga is a must.
It'll happen.
I expect the brain drains for basketball a lot more cheery all the way around.
All right, brother. I'll be there, and you'll be there too. All right, bro.
All right, man.
See
it.
There he goes. Auburn Alumni. Great call. As you would expect from Auburn Alumni. He's been great all day long. I got some good news. Coach Hunter is back in the fray here. So we're going to call Coach Hunter now. Let's see how much he has been able to absorb today. Let's see what he thinks about that.
Talk to me, JT.
What up, bro?
Man, what's going on?
We have been thirsting for some of your insight on this. How much of the game did you have a chance to see?
I got to watch the second half.
And what were your thoughts?
Pretty much in its entirety. A lot to clean up. Some things that Auburn got some bad breaks in the second half too. The holding call to start the half I thought was pretty garbage. That was a big play, a huge play for Tank individually. It looked like they were trying to run the 3-3 stack with the 3 high safety look like they did against LSU last year. That worked really well in that game.
Yes.
But they don't have the dudes at the point of attack up front to get away with playing a 3-man line right now. And 2, it seemed like when you go to something really different, you've got to have some experienced players that know how to adjust and know what it does to their eyes when you change their alignment or space them out differently. And they struggle with their run fit reads incredibly bad. It looked like everybody was a second slow on their trigger. It looked like everybody was a gap behind. And Ole Miss was running that stretch read, and really RPOing it a lot of times with the stretch read and the Y seam option out of the big tight end right there. And it put them in a bind. And it really looks like if you flash back a couple years, the game where Nick Fitzgerald hurt Auburn really, really bad when they played Mississippi State a couple years ago, it was kind of the same thing in terms of backer irresponsibility inside the box. Once that stretch action happened, there were too many seams inside for the quarterback to run.
Word. Why? Okay. So the LSU game last year, that 3-3 worked really well, against a great quarterback like Joe Burrow, at least for a little while. What's the advantage of that? And it gives you a lot of chances to do stuff on the back end when you go 3-3, but why stay in that so long?
I think, and this is strictly my opinion, from outside observation, I think they were so concerned about the RPO part of Ole Miss's offense that they wanted that extra second-level defender to help close some of those windows on the slants, the sticks, the digs, the seam route, the stuff that happens fast, right off the run read. And so you want that extra defender in the window right there. Well, when you do that, though, to get it to where that's effective, it means that you've got to stop the run part of the RPO first and force it and dictate the ball, go to that second level where you're closing the windows. They could do that with Marlon and Derek up front, basically both taking away 2 gaps each. They couldn't do that with this group. And the seams were too big. I think Big Cat was really confused on what his responsibility versus outside zone versus stretch was a lot today, because he got caught in no man's land numerous times where he didn't squeeze the down block of the puller and he didn't run for contain on the stretch. It was confusing to watch.
Yeah. And it also matters, I think, when you run that and you don't have Derek Brown to play that inside guy. I mean, Daquan was doing okay, but he ain't Derek Brown,
Oh, without a doubt. You've got to, when you're an odd man front, the guy that's the centerpiece in there has to reset the line of scrimmage. He has to get vertical push to make sure there's nothing moving forward on the inside. So it slows pullers. It doesn't allow guys to climb. When you don't have a guy that resets it, you can't be an odd man front unless you're truly slanting and twisting and attacking with the odd man front. And that's not why they were in it.
Unless you're terrified of the RPO, which, I mean, Ole Miss got a lot of yards today, Hunter, but Auburn got the 3 and out, or they got the fourth down punt when they needed it in the fourth quarter. So you got to give them that.
Yeah, they did. They also went back to a 4-man front.
Oh yeah, that's
true.
Get
that at the end.
Yeah.
I don't hate it in terms of the concept of it, because on the whiteboard that looks really good. Against the scout team at practice, that probably looked really good. But you've got some young linebackers in Papo and McClain that are already kind of struggling with the way they fit things and handle things inside.
Yes.
And that's a big shift in terms of responsibility and just what you're seeing and what your eyes have to do every play.
Your general thoughts just kind of on this, grade this performance. There's a lot of people disappointed in the chat with this, and they feel like it's just more of Gus being Gus, but your thoughts just kind of on offense and defense.
The team did not fold in adversity. And to go, I'll come back to the criticism in a moment, but to be complimentary, you don't see Malzahn teams fold generally in the face of adversity. You tip your cap to him for that. He doesn't ever seem to lose the locker room or lose the squad, right? I think, though, this one, there were just the mistakes kind of trickled down, special teams mistakes. That missed extra point, terrible. The last drive right before half, it looked like the one from last week where they really struggled to have a plan. And, you kind of, during the week, those things have been done in dress rehearsal situations to where you got a plan of attack versus what you expect in your 2-minute offensive period based on where you are on the field and what you've been getting. You'd like to see them execute and get some more points right there. And then on the other side of the ball, surprisingly, when your head coach is a hurry-up, no-huddle guy, the defense did not do a good job with tempo alignment. They got caught still looking to the sideline, still not being lined up correctly quite a few times by the Ole Miss offense. So, yeah, there's definitely some administrative flaws in the way that things were handled.
I don't know if you had a chance to see. They had a few, GT counters where they didn't even defend the backside pursuit, and they got crushed. They got run down. And I didn't understand that's a systemic problem. That's not on the kids.
Well, that goes back. That's been a recurring problem going back to the time when Stidham was the quarterback, because it's as if that Auburn just assumes that the backside defender is going to honor the quarterback as a run threat and sit and stay. But if you're not consistently pulling that and running off that backside read, they're not going to do that. They're going to call your bluff and crash. And that's exactly what happened. Is they're free releasing that backside 5-tech. He's crashing down hard, and there's no read to keep him home, no read to make him sit, stay, and be patient.
And they learned that lesson the hard way, man. I mean, they got cut. Yeah. They got caught from behind a bunch of times.
You can't just assume that guy's going to do what the textbook said he should do. Because they're playing tendency. You call a game based on tendency. If I've got a quarterback that's only going to pull the zone read in the red zone or the green zone, I'm in the middle of the field. I'm in the money zone. I'm crashing my end hard, or I'm going to crash him hard and keep the outside linebacker at home for the backside of the read, because there's nothing to make me think otherwise.
Do you walk away from this one thinking they've actually accomplished something here?
road win in the SEC, you accomplish something. Now, granted, I still think that's 2 weeks in a row. Auburn's played teams where their roster is substantially better, 1 through 85, than those teams, and haven't played up to the level that they should. Obviously, in the loss last week, I think Auburn should be over this Ole Miss team in terms of personnel, should be at least 14 to 17 points better than this team.
Damn. I mean, you're just speaking the truth, man.
I mean, it is, and again, ugly W's are way better than that thing that doesn't exist in terms of pretty losses.
Yeah.
And who knows, it's an all SEC schedule down the road. Everyone is big. Everyone's real big.
They got LSU next weekend, a team that's had some issues this year. LSU, that's a winnable game for sure at home. 2:30 on CBS, Coach Hunter.
It's a very winnable game. Very, very winnable game. But things that can't happen, can't have special teams boxes. 2 huge ones today. The missed extra point, the snap over the punter's head, which, luckily Auburn snipped out the fake field goal, didn't give up points there. Those things can't happen in SEC games. They've got to, Pelini's going to force Auburn to throw the ball against man coverage. He still calls games like it's 2007. That's one reason they've struggled a little bit so far defending teams, but that's his mindset. That's his mentality. Auburn's going to have to play against a loaded box, and they're going to have to make throws against man coverage. So some max protection stuff, some quarterback read stuff against a stacked box on the backside. Those things are going to be really important.
That's going to be a big game right there. I mean, you go to 4-2 if you win that one, and you feel good going into the off week. So they're going to want that one really bad, Lee.
Definitely.
Well, Coach Hunter, you've been an absolute badass again, and I know it's been tough for you today because you got a lot going on, but it's very much appreciated.
Hey, man, grinders got to grind, bro.
Okay, man. We'll see you, bro.
See you, Jake.
See you, man. Hey, caller, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hey, Jay, it's mwdeav.
What up, bro? How you been? Hey, great performance today in the chat.
Yeah, I'm good. I felt like, it was coming across like I actually wanted Auburn to lose, but that wasn't the case.
No, I didn't get that.
I just got there on that last drive. I knew Ole Miss was going to go down the field and score, and I was just like, well, okay, maybe we do lose and we can move on. But when we got the ball back, I can't pull for our kids to not go out there and win the football game. I mean, I can't pull for that for Bo Nix. I can't pull for that for Seth Williams.
And they pulled it out, man. Seth made a great play. Bo made a great throw. They got the touchdown ahead. The defense was just good enough, although they had Ole Miss had a drop there late that kind of changed it, didn't they?
Absolutely. And I've been a huge believer in Bo, even when other people are down on him. I kind of try to defend him a little bit. He doesn't always do perfect things, but to me, he's got a lot of talent. And more than anything else, when he gets into that situation, he's got guts. He's not a guy that's going to be like get down on himself and just go out there and, heave for desperation in that situation. That situation to me is when he's at his best. Even last week, he was trying to make plays.
Well, he's a badass. I mean, he fights hard. You got to give him credit for that,
As far as what's going on otherwise, the thing that baffles me the most is how our defensive line got in this condition. I don't really, you were asking I think maybe it was Auburn Alumni. It was like, I don't understand, why people aren't talking about, Kevin Steele and Rodney, but I kind of give them the benefit of the doubt because I feel like they've earned it over time, and whatever's going on, I believe will get fixed.
Over time, yeah. I mean, he's shown the ability to do that.
Yeah, it's not going to happen fast.
Right.
You see a lot of people talking about, we've got a really talented freshman defensive lineman. The truth is, outside of Derek Brown, I don't remember the last time I saw a freshman step in on the defensive line in the SEC and change anything. It's just that's a position that takes, even with great talent, take 2 to 3 years to develop.
Yeah, even Derek, like you mentioned, he's just so as a freshman,
So it's probably more a question of, how we got where. But that's, again, I have faith in those coaches. It's more the offensive side. I don't have a ton of faith. We got where we are with the offensive line because of a coaching situation there, I think. And really more than that, with the recruiting, it's really easy for teams to do negative recruiting against us on the offensive line now. You've had, not even like coaches' inside information, but popular press articles that talk about how Auburn does not develop offensive linemen for the next level. And that's hard to overcome.
Yeah, and they've lost a lot of recruiting battles. on the offensive line. In fact, you could argue they've lost way more than they've won. And
I thought, to his credit, I thought Gus made a great hire with our new offensive line coach because he had that NFL pedigree.
Well, he kind of is where he is personnel-wise, though, right? Like, he couldn't affect recruiting much last year, and he's just trying to pick up the pieces, you know?
And it's just like the defensive line. Again, those positions take time to develop. We started back in 2007, we started 3 freshmen on the offensive line, I think, at one point. And, 2008 was an aberration with offensive line play, but by 2010, those guys won a national championship. Granted, they had a great quarterback going on, but
sure.
They did develop. It took time. And, that may be the situation we're in there.
I hope not. I mean, we want Big Nell to go out there next year and sign a bunch of 5-stars, but I don't think it's happening, man.
Yeah, it was not, because what's different between now and 2007, 2008, well, when those guys were recruited in 2006, you got, Alabama and Georgia on each side of us, and what they're able to do that's different in recruiting is both of those programs can just walk into a house, and, this is what I think a lot of people don't realize. What's the first thing most of these 4-star and 5-star recruits care about? They want to know that you're going to get them in the league and that they're going to be successful and they're going to make a lot of money. They're not, oh, you have a flashy offense, you put up a bunch of yardage, that's great. Toomer's Corner is wonderful. There's a few guys that are like that, but most of the recruits and their parents, it's how are you going to develop me into a guy that goes in the first round of the NFL draft?
And Auburn doesn't have that long history the way Alabama does or the way Georgia does,
And Georgia's coaches were doing it at other programs before they came to Georgia. So, I mean, they both can roll out that list. And, Auburn on the offensive side of the ball doesn't really have coaches that can do that. To his credit, I think you're seeing that Carnell Williams is a natural recruiter from day one. But, a lot of the other coaches on offense, that's just not their MO. The whole offense, is built around Gus's style of play. I mean, that's where it all came from traditionally. It's changing a little slowly, bit by bit, but it was designed around Gus's offense, and yet Gus also sort of tried to get away from his offense. So, because he wanted to prove, he could coach a different style of offense too.
Yeah, these are good points. I know. Look, man, I was kind of going head-to-head with you earlier, but I'm glad you kind of took it the right way, where I know you're a good poster and a good caller and a good person during the game. I mean, you weren't being a jerk at all. Right. You're all about just kind of the debate. You're not trying to be personal, and I appreciate that about it.
Well, you see other debates I have that the rest of the posters don't see because it's not on the message board. But I mean, I try to be objective as much as I can.
Yeah.
I think to me it's, and maybe this isn't where it come across. It's great. We should beat Ole Miss. We should beat, in Arkansas. We should have beaten South Carolina. When you win those games, it's good. And I want Auburn to have, at least an 8-4 record on an average year or whatever the equivalent would be this year. But at the end of the day, if you expect to compete for championships, you have to be a team that can go, particularly outside of Auburn, and beat an Alabama, Georgia, Florida, LSU, Clemson, Florida State. You don't have to even beat them every time. You don't have to beat them half the time away from home. But you got to win those games at some point. And in those kind of games, Gus is 0-16 over 8 years.
Phew, that's a stinky number right there, brother.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and a lot of you keep saying, well, he's learning, he's going to get there. This is year 8 of the program.
It is.
And we're not, I think what kind of just nail in the coffin, if I wasn't already there, was watching how poorly prepared that team was against Georgia. How the game plan, he's just got certain things that he's going to give away the play with the personnel by having John Samuel Schoeneker and Pegues out there with Schwartz behind them. It's going to be a screen. Until you play Alabama, then he's finally going to run the wheel route based off of it, and it's going to be, hey, big play. But he saves up all year to change up that sort of thing. And I realize he's not the play caller right now. But it's still – I see the signs of the designs of his offense. I don't think he's calling plays. I'm not saying that. But the personnel – I mean, I think Chad is a guy that's on the same page with him. We know he comes out of the same background. You just see those tendencies. They keep – flowing through, and things like, oh, I'm going to start Sean Shivers instead of Tank Bisbee because he's our senior. He was our starter, that sort of thing. You can take most games down to 4, 5, 6 plays, all but the biggest blowouts. And when you're making those decisions consistently that are costing you a play here and there, over time, it's going to cost you a football game.
It will cost them eventually. And they're 3-2 right now. I mean, they can beat this LSU team. I mean, they can get to 5. 4 actually. 4 at that point. But I mean, they're going to get to 5 or 6 wins. And you mentioned earlier,
I think they could get to
8-4 normally. You'd be okay with it.
6-4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is 6-4 in this season?
There, it's okay, but it's more the fact that it's every year.
Yeah, I know you're expecting one of those outlier seasons.
Taking that next step.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Even in 2017, when you won those 2 big games, you choked miserably in a conference title game and a championship game.
I mean, just being real. Just being real.
So you got outside of Auburn. At Auburn, you played great, but you got outside of Auburn, and you didn't do the things that made you success. It's not just, winning on the road intimidates him or his team. He changes the game plan. He does things that he thinks are, we're going to scale the offense down, quarterback.
No doubt.
Well, it goes to things like these single read things, and the fans see that, and they're like, Bo had a guy wide open. I don't know that Bo thought he could throw to the wide open guy. I don't know that he ever looked at him. I don't know these things. I do know that we've had 4 or 5 quarterbacks now that it's been the same result. So at that point, it says to me, maybe it's not this extremely talented quarterback. Maybe it's the fact that he's never had a quarterback coach, because the coaches you see on staff now and the coaches that Gus has had haven't been guys that have that pedigree of coaching guys in the NFL or getting them ready for the NFL or coaching like we see like Lane Kiffin or Steve Sarkisian, or, there's plenty of coaches other than the Alabama coaches, but these guys, a Norm Chow, you look at these guys that develop quarterbacks, and that's just not Gus's pedigree.
No,
he didn't work under someone else that coached, get your feet right. It's about the mechanics. It's about where you release the ball. It's about your vision. You got to look here. You got to look that guy off. That's just not his origin. I don't know either way. I don't know how to say how much of that he knows and understands. He probably knows more than me because I don't know anything. I just know compared to those guys, the resume isn't the same. And that's always been a question I've had.
mwdeav, a fine call. You don't call that often. We wish you called more often, but great poster. Great brain drainer. Glad to have you, bro.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jay.
All right. See you at MW. There he goes. mwdeav. He's sneaky good, He doesn't post a lot on the bunker, but when he does, I pay attention to it myself. So sorry it was so loud, guys. My bad.
JGT, what's going on, brother?
Jhead, my man. What's up, bro?
Oh, nothing much. Just listening to the brain drain. I'm actually getting a good little chuckle out of it because, look, I'm not going to be a Gus apologist here by any means, and I'm extremely excited for our kids getting the win today. But damn, you got some people that are just upset that he won. We're nitpicking some small things here today, and we should be celebrating the victory. And I understand it's the totality of everything. I understand it's not what everybody wants to see. But we just beat a really good Ole Miss offense at home, an offense that lit Alabama's ass up. Put 40 on them, if I remember correctly. Kevin didn't have his best day today, but we got stops when we needed to. And, yes, they had a big drop, but that's just the way football goes sometimes. So I think that we need to be wrapping our arms around these guys right now, celebrating the fact that we got a win and we're pushed off what could be a catastrophe. Because I'm going to be honest, if we lose that game today, it's not just a perception of instability anymore. We are truly an unstable program at that point, losing probably what should be 3 games in a row, going into a very pivotal LSU game. And then if Gus's job wasn't already in question, it's definitely in question. I think this kind of starts to build us some positive momentum moving forward. If you get an LSU victory going into the bye week, well, now you've got a very beatable Mississippi State team. And look, I think we all know that long-term, maybe Gus is probably not the solution for us, but right now we need to do the best we can to support this team because we're starting to become really frayed as a fan base, and we need to figure out a way to kind of unify to a degree and make sure that we support these guys the way they deserve to be supported.
Yeah, it does seem like they're getting a little bit split up. You got the people that love Auburn and want to get rid of Gus, and then you've got others.
You do. And look, I understand the argument. And if anybody's watched my post in the bunker this past week, I obviously question, the feasibility of Gus long-term here at Auburn. I just feel like at this point in year 8 that we have been too up and down at this point, that the consistency is not where it should be. But I'm also an Auburn fan, and I'm an Auburn supporter. And every time that we take the field, I want us to, by God, go out there and get a W. And I don't like to see people cheer against this football team. Obviously, I think anybody, if you're going to transition head coaches, you'd like to see a situation like what Mark Richt did with Georgia, or Georgia did with Mark Richt, where you give way to somebody going out on a losing year. We need to land recruits right now, and we're in a bad, bad way on the recruiting trail. And I'm sure Jeffrey Lee can dovetail into that more. But we've lost some big-time kids that we were in on. Now, there are some other big-time kids that we can get. But we need to start to get some momentum here. We need to start to turn things around, and I think today was a positive step. I thought things on offense were sequenced much better. And, yes, there were still some things that I'd like to have seen something done differently, some different route concepts utilized. But I think we're getting to that. I know a lot of people are being hard on, the fact that other teams are playing better offensively, like Ole Miss. Ole Miss's scheme is a little bit more simplistic than what we're trying to do from a route concept standpoint. And you can see each and every week where we're starting to break in and utilize new routes and become more familiar with the personnel. And nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to admit that that's realistically an issue, the fact that we didn't have that continuity, the fact that we didn't have spring. And yes, there are other teams that are doing better than we are, but We're getting there. I'm seeing progress. I think the thing defensively right now is that, and I think D. Lucky's the one that called this the lack of impact players. That's really where we're missing, and specifically on the defensive interior, because we've got 2 decent starters, but they get worn out. Now, I saw a nice play by Drake Butler today. I know that Rodney's high on him. He needs more work. But I think we've got some guys with some potential. It's just they're not there yet. They're extremely young. Nobody wants to hear young in year 8, but that's where we are. And so it's take it brick by brick, step by step, quoting Butch Jones right there, just to make everybody want to throw up right now. And just kind of push this thing forward.
Champions of life, my man. Champions of life.
I'm telling you, is there ever more garbage statement than that?
No, it's the worst
Lose
there ever
a football
was.
game, but we're the champions of life.
Recruiting wise, you're obviously someone who follows recruiting very, very closely. Auburn has not won a lot of battles at offensive line, and now's kind of when they pay the price for that. They need offensive linemen right now, specifically tackles, and they don't have hardly anything right now. No,
they don't. And look, I think the 2 junior college guys they got are going to be good, but the problem is we took Zier when he had an injury. And I think here's the thing: Gus has always been loyal to kids. Even if they sustain an injury, he's going to keep them. He's not going to take away their scholarship. But we took a kid that knew he wasn't going to be able to play this year, and he hasn't been able to contribute to this point. Coffee is seriously going to need to put on a little bit more weight, probably about another 15 to 20 pounds before he can contribute. But both those guys have a nice skill set. And I think moving into next year, they will really help us. And we can start to slide Broham back inside where he's far more natural at guard. We're doing a decent job of offensive tackle recruiting this year. I really like Caleb Johnson. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be able to be a contributor in a couple of years. We've missed on some other guys that could have been really big help to our depth. But there's another kid in Atlanta. Jay Lee has swapped back and forth texts on this kid that we may end up pushing on that I think could be a contributor in a couple of years. But there's no immediate impact players out there that we can land right now. And that's tough because we need depth amongst the offensive line, and that's 110% on Gus, and it's 100% on the fact of who Gus has employed as his offensive line coach. And I'm not trying to bag JB because I actually like JB as a president. Obviously, his recruiting was lackluster,
yes,
and Herb Hand was a complete and utter just disappointment. I think Vic has done a really good job. I'm in line with a lot of the kids that he's identified and targeted. We just come up a little bit short here, but I think he's the right kind of offensive line coach. Should he be kept moving forward into next year? I think Gus is going to be here next year. I'm not one of these people that's advocating that he needs to be fired as of right now. But if we, say we don't win another game and we go 3-7 this season, I know there are even people, and I'm not questioning you, Jay, because you know far more than me. But from what I've told, if he goes a 3 or 4 game winning season, there's a chance he's going to get fired.
No, I agree.
There's a fear.
I agree completely now. I didn't 3 weeks ago, but yeah. I do now, Jhead.
Yeah, there's a fear amongst people that matter. And I, happen to have a conversation with somebody that, is entwined in that, that fan apathy is going to be the point that they're going to lose so much money rolling into next year if they don't do something. If we have a season like that, that's the fear, is that the potential of lost wages moving into next year could be even more expensive than what it would be to pay Gus as Biden.
Yeah.
Now, once again, I think most people of influence that matter want to see Gus turn this thing around. Now, there are those ones, and you know them just like I do, that want to fire his ass like it was yesterday. They want to fire him in 2018. They want to fire him now. But they can be mitigated to a degree if he can put up a 7-3 or 6-4 type season, so that you can have some stability rolling into next year. Now, if that's what's best for the long term of the program, probably not. But is it what's most fiscally feasible right now, and then maybe make a change in 2021? Absolutely.
You're usually a hero to the people in the chat, but they don't seem very happy with you today, jhead. They don't like your positivity, bro.
Oh, I'm sure they don't. And look, I understand it. I completely understand where they're coming from. People have seen this for 8 years. They're tired of it. They're sick of the inconsistency. I completely understand, but I'm trying to be rational with my thoughts today. And I'm trying to basically paint what I think is going to be the picture moving forward. Not necessarily what people want to hear, but what I think is how it's going to play out.
jhead, another tremendous call from you, brother. And thank you for kind of jumping in the chat and making me take this call. I mean, we love talking to you. I just forget about it sometimes.
No, you're perfectly fine, Jay. I know we all got things going on in our life. I hope you guys have been killing it at Auburn Sports per the usual. Love Jay Lee, Brian, everything that you new guys bringing to the table, and obviously everything that you do, man. I just appreciate you giving me the forum to come on today. Hope I didn't irritate too many people, not trying to pump too much sunshine, just trying to lay it out there as I see things right now.
There you go. jhead, thank you for calling in, brother.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate you.
See you, bro. There he is, jhead. He's a beast. I know some of you guys don't like hearing what he has to say. He is. I think that it's more about pragmatism than it is anything else with him.